All right, it looks like I'm live. I certainly hope I'm live, because if I'm not live, I'm going to be talking to myself. In any case, I wanted to say hello to all intelligent life forms out there everywhere. That's pretty much anyone who voted for Trump or voted conservative here in Canada. And to everyone else out there, of course, the secret is to bang those rocks together, guys. My name is Stephen Britton, as it says here on the screen. I'm used to it being a mirrored image in front of me. So I'm like, if I point this way, I mean to be pointing this way, well, we'll figure it out as we go along. This is my first time using StreamYard, and basically it's a bit of an experiment as well. So if you are watching, please head on over to YouTube and make some comment or chat. Actually, I'm going to quickly check to see if I actually got comments turned on over on YouTube. Let's find out. So, are my comments turned on? Yes, they are. So, we're going to do a quick test of a comment here. Why not? There we go. There's a comment. And let's see what comes up in the StreamYard chat. Nothing. Isn't that interesting? Well, we'll see what happens as we go along. In any case, so why am I here today? Well, I am making some puff pastry. So I thought I'd give it a try where I would come on here, make the puff pastry, talk a little bit. Oh, there's the comment right there. What do you know? Hey, it works. There you go. So I will see the comments. I will be able to bring them up on the screen. So let's give it a try. If you have any questions regarding politics and you're watching, key them on in and we'll see what we end up with. In the meantime, the reason I am here is I'm going to make some puff pastry. A lot of people are a little bit afraid of making pastry at home, so I thought I'd give it a try. I've got here a recipe. It claims to be a 15-minute recipe. I guess we're going to find out. And while I'm doing it, I may decide to talk a little bit of politics while I'm at it. Why? Well, because that's the type of person I am. That's why I've called this this stream Puff Pastry and Politics, or was it Politics and Puff Pastry? I don't remember which. Doesn't really matter. So, but just to get us started here, just to give you a quick overview as to the ingredients that you need for puff pastry, because that's going to be one of the most important things. You have what you need, or you need what you have what you need. I will get it right one of these days. First thing you need is 10 teaspoons, or 10 tablespoons rather, of high quality butter. Now, I used whatever butter I had in my fridge. So there's one thing. I tend to substitute ingredients from time to time when I'm messing around in the kitchen, simply because I find it a little bit fun to do that. You need 1/3 cup of ice cold water, which I have right here. You need a cup of flour, which I have right there, and you need 1/4 teaspoon of fine salt, which is what I have here. So now I have set up on this table here in front of me a camera, pointing down at the work surface. So I'm going to switch to that camera here as we go through this. So there's the bowl, and let's do 1/4 teaspoon of salt right there. So we can get that out of the way, and we're going to add our cup of flour, and there we go. So we've got our flour and our salt, and it says to mix together in a medium bowl. Well, guess what? That is a nice medium bowl. Yeah, so I thought I'd come on here and talk a little bit about politics and Donald Trump particularly, because people are still screaming and yelling over his contesting the election. And I've really given this some, I've really been giving this some thought, because when it comes to Trump, when it comes to any election, it is absolutely critical that, in particular, the side that does not win the election accepts the election as valid. Because if the winning side is going around saying, hey, everything's fine, nothing to see here, We won, just accept the result. But the losing side says, no, 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 no. There is cheating here. No amount of saying, well, we won, is going to convince people that the election was valid. In actual fact, what should be happening is, and I've said this before, and I will say it again, and I will repeat myself over and over again. It is the losing side that gets to double check and contest the results. And the winning side, or the side that thinks they've won, should be supporting this. They should be backing every time. They should be saying, you want to check the results? You want to count the ballots? You want to make sure that those signatures match? Go for it. We want you to be satisfied that you lost fair and square. Because unless you do that, the election will never, ever be considered legitimate. And one of my biggest beefs with the whole thing, and I'm going to get back to that in a second. One of my biggest beefs is rather an interesting one, but I'll get back to that in just a second here. It says, next, cube the butter and then add it to the flour bowl using a pastry blender or 2 knives. Now, I've never made this recipe before, so it could be crap. Could be great. Who knows? We're going to give it a try, and we're going to see what we end up with. So, got to cube the butter and then add it to the flour bowl using a pastry blender or 2 knives. Cut the butter into the dough. It will be very crumbly. And you're done when the butter is in uniform pieces, all about the size of peas. All right, so it wants me to cube the butter. I'm going to do a quick experiment here. Or do I even have it? Oh, it's not there. Maybe I'm not going to do what I was thinking about doing. Or is it in here? No. I can't find the tool that I was looking for. Maybe it was a tool that I borrowed and had to return. All right, doesn't matter. Not the end of the world. I'll do this the boring way. Okay, so let's just switch that camera again. There we go. Okay, so there's my 10 tablespoons of butter, and I need a couple of knives. I need to cube this butter. It's been sitting in my fridge since yesterday. Anyway, so back to what I was saying about Trump and the election. A little while back, one of the criticisms that Biden himself threw at Donald Trump is he accused Trump of acting extremely irresponsibly and undermining democracy. Quite frankly, that's a bunch of rubbish. Because Trump is the CEO of the government. Does that look cubed to you guys? I think that looks a little cubed to me. So there we go. So since Trump is the CEO of the US government, he is the guy in charge. It is incumbent upon Trump to make sure that the election system, because the buck stops with Trump right now, love him or hate him, the buck stops with Trump, then it's up to Trump to make sure that everything is running appropriately and the government runs according to plan, according to the laws and such. So Trump has to uphold the laws and the U.S. Constitution. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to cut the butter into the flour, as you can see here. And we're going to keep doing this until it gets to roughly, as it says in the instructions, the size of peas. And if Trump honestly truly believes that the election was rigged, and I believe that Trump honestly believes what he is saying and is saying these things in good faith, then the one who is undermining democracy isn't Donald Trump, but Joe Biden and his supporters. They are the ones who are undermining democracy simply because, I might add, they are the ones who are trying to claim that the election was legitimate. But Trump does not believe this. So it is important to make sure, not because Trump is trying to win, that might be the end result, that Trump ends up winning the election. And I think I've gone from extremely negative on the thought, thinking that no, he didn't really have much of a chance. And I'm thinking, based on what I've been hearing about the details that have been released in Pennsylvania, I'm thinking Trump has a fairly good chance here at this point. We will see. I think it's going to be contentious regardless of what happens. And I have a very strong feeling that if Trump does end up succeeding and retaining the presidency, all hell is going to break loose in the United States. Much more so than it did 4 years ago. You think you've seen riots already? You think you've seen riots in the last few years? That ain't nothing compared to what's going to happen when Trump. I'm not even going to say if at this point, but if and when. Let's put it that way. If and when Trump actually wins the election in the Electoral College, or with the courts back him and demand a revote, or end up putting in an injunction and a court-ordered revote in a few of these states, then I think you'll find rioting like you have never seen before. Ooh, this is actually hard work. All right, so I think that looks a little crumbly. Maybe we need to make it maybe we need to just cut it up a bit more here. All right, so dude. Okay, so that's my thoughts on Donald Trump. And, this whole COVID pandemic certainly hasn't helped things for him. They certainly haven't. It's been a very difficult time because COVID has really, really screwed up things for the public and the government. The Democrats knew full well that mail-in ballots are far easier to fiddle with than in-person voting, which is precisely why they wanted it, because they knew that if people were going to tamper. And do I think Joe Biden himself was sanctioning this kind of thing? No, I do not believe that Joe Biden personally pushed for this to occur. I think that this was a bunch of local efforts on people's parts, and the upper echelons of the Democratic Party just basically kept quiet and kept it out of Joe Biden's sphere of knowledge, because they didn't want Joe Biden to know, because then Joe Biden has plausible deniability. So do I think that there was malfeasance? Yes. Do I think Joe Biden knows about it? Not officially. But I think there is sufficient evidence that's out there to warrant further investigation, which is exactly what the judge in Pennsylvania has enabled by declaring that the certification process for Pennsylvania can't continue. And I know that Trump's pushing a couple of lawsuits in Georgia, or at least one lawsuit in Georgia. And I think that there's stuff going on over in Wisconsin too, or Michigan, maybe Michigan. I'm not too sure which. I know that when I was looking at the numbers, if he got Pennsylvania and Georgia, he had it. If he got Pennsylvania and I think it was Nevada or New Mexico, or sorry, Arizona, he had it. So Pennsylvania is going to be key. Keystone State, I guess, is one way of putting it. Okay, so there we go. Now, just so you know, this puff pastry recipe, I'm just going to give you credit for, or give credit for where I found it. It's on dessert42.com, and that's all spelled out, DESSERTFORTWO.com. And then it's 15-minute-puff-pastry. That's like the slashes, slash before 15-minute puff pastry, and then there's a slash after it. That'll give you the direct link to this recipe. Okay, so there we go. That is our crumbled, roughly the size of peas. It'll do. Even if it's not, it's going to do because I'm done cutting this around. Now it says, next, make a hole in the center of the dough. So we're going to do that. There's our hole. Sounds almost rude, but there's the hole in the dough. And using a fork, stir to combine the dough. And it says, next, make a hole in the center of the dough and pour in all of the water. So we need 1/3 of a cup of ice water. Now, this is one of the things that always gets me a little bit confused, because here, I follow these recipes. I follow the recipe, and it gives me an amount of water to use, but it never seems to be enough. So we'll see what happens. It's very dry where I live, so maybe that's part of the problem. Here we go. So let's pour the water into the hole. Now it says, using a fork, stir to combine the dough. All right, so let's switch the camera so you can see me doing this. Why the heck not? And, if I actually had someone on a switcher, then, I probably wouldn't keep talking about what I'm doing with the cameras, but whatever. Okay, so, but COVID has not been anyone's friend in this whole process, of course. And up here in Canada, we've got a idiot by the name of Justin Trudeau, who's our, I hate him. Even just saying the guy's name makes me want to vomit. And I don't want to puke on top of my puff pastry here. But so Justin is our prime minister, unfortunately. He hasn't got a clue what he's doing. He basically takes the advice of whoever's in the room with him at the time, which is incredibly, this is what I mean by and his national plan for fighting coronavirus is simply to throw money at the problem. He claims that we're going to have the majority of the population, or even most of the majority or most of the population vaccinated against coronavirus by September of 2021. So this is going to drag on yet another year from now, which is incredibly frustrating as well. Now, I'm glad that there is a vaccine in the works. I'm glad that it's in the final stages of testing and trials. I personally will not be one of the first to receive the vaccine. I'm not interested in doing that. Not, I mind you, because I believe that there's nanobots in the vaccine that are going to be acting as an antenna for 5G radio signals transmitted into our bodies by big tech, so they can monitor us every step of where we go and know what we're doing and what we're thinking at all times. I do not believe that at all. I think nanotechnology is nowhere near that close yet, or nowhere near that far along in the public sphere anyway. However, my biggest concern with this vaccine isn't so much the fact that isn't so much the whole conspiracy nanobot BS, because that is a bunch of bunk. My biggest concern is the fact that this vaccine that they've produced is an RNA, ribonucleic acid, rather than a DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid vaccine. And the fact is, it is a vaccine like this has never been used on people before. They've used it on animals, but never on people. So I'm concerned on that basis. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned about the vaccine and why I personally do not wish to be one of the first to receive it. Okay, so now we're on to the next step in this recipe here. Flour a cutting board and add the dough. Pat it into a rough square. You will see chunks of butter and it will seem too dry, but do not add extra water. The dough will come together with each roll. So let's get the flour. It's up here. See, it even says flour in my lovely handwriting. So I did wash my hands before I started, in case you were concerned or curious. So flouring the cutting board. That looks floured to me. And add the dough. What am I adding the dough to? The cutting board? That sounds a bit strange. How do you add dough to a cutting board? I know you put dough on the cutting board. Like that. And then we'll just put that aside. And what does it say here? You will see chunks of butter and yeah, okay, whatever. Pat into a rough square. Okay. Fun times. I should have done a video like this the time I made filo pastry as well. And by the way, that filo pastry I made turned out really well. I was really happy with that. And in case you're wondering why, you may not be, but in case you're wondering why I'm actually making puff pastry, it is because I am going to be making a beef Wellington a little bit later on today. So I don't know if I'm going to live stream that one. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. They can take a little bit of time to make, so maybe I just record it. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I think that looks a bit square to me. There we go. There's a rough square, complete with chunks of butter, just like it says on the screen there. Okay. There we go. Close enough. So, next up, I don't know. It doesn't want a cube, it wants a square. Of course, a square is completely two-dimensional, and this will always have a third dimension, even if it were laid out the size of this cutting board. But I think that's probably close enough. Yeah, we're not doing the whole flatland thing here. And if you're wondering, I'm referring to, there was a novel written by I think the guy was a mathematician or someone, and it was called Flatland. And the story was all about a society of two-dimensional entities. And one of them is kidnapped by a third dimension person and flies up, which is a dimension that does not exist to a two-dimensional creature, over the top of the two-dimensional world, and he sees it from a completely different perspective. And it's done to illustrate the idea of thinking in 4 dimensions, because we can imagine any number, we can mathematically calculate any number of dimensions, of course, but we just can't perceive anything other than the 3 physical dimensions and the 1 dimension of time that we live in. And time only travels in one direction, of course. That is an entirely different discussion for an entirely different time. Pun not intended. Okay, so flour the rolling pin. Roll out the dough in front of you into a rectangle about 10 inches long. No need to be too precise here. I like the way this is written too. It's kind of amusing. So let's flour the rolling pin. This is a nice rolling pin too. It's a non-stick rolling pin. And I think it's like granite or something, because it's a really nice one. So here we go. So we're gonna roll it out. Whoa, this is what happens. So let's make it 10 inches long, just short of a foot. I'm gonna need some more flour on this rolling pin, I think. Just checking a couple of things while I'm here. Nope, nothing of interest there. Let's see here. Okay, so what we got now? I'm on YouTube. Okay, and see what it says here. Oh, okay. Everything is the way it should be. All right, well, we'll just keep going. Okay, so now, so here we go. We're going to add some more flour. I think this is the part that makes people a little bit hesitant about pastry. Because they don't like rolling things out. Why? I don't know why it has me rolling this out on a cutting board either. And filo pastry was a real intense process because when I was making the filo pastry, you have to roll it out like paper thin. And then you fold it over, you roll it out again, you fold it over again, and then you have to roll it out again in layer, and you end up with these multiple layers of this pastry, which is all paper thin. So, okay, so now that is, I don't know if that's 10 inches long. It looks about right to me. Okay, so let's just square it up a little bit because we can. Okay. Now, fold the bottom third of the dough over to the middle of the dough. Fold the upper third of the dough on top of the middle too. Rotate the dough 1/4 turn and repeat. Use additional flour as needed to prevent the dough from sticking. All right, so we're going to do that. And then we're going to do that. And we'll find out if it means on the rolling surface or if it means on the dough itself. 1/4 turn. And we're going to roll it out again. It's a little bit interesting, isn't it? Okay. Roll, fold out, turn the dough at least 6 or 7 times. So this is a lot more than a 10 inches long. So we're going to do that. There we go. 1/4 turn again, and roll it out. And see what I mean? This is actually quite a simple and straightforward process. It's not difficult to do at all. So now we have made, this is 3. And it's starting to stick, so we're going to move that over here, get some flour in there. So there we go, and we're turning it counterclockwise. I think it's probably important to keep it consistent as to which direction you turn it when you do the 1/4 turn. I hope I have enough puff pastry here for my beef Wellington. I don't see why I wouldn't, but you never know. Okay, there we go. Fold, turn, and then turn, wrong way, counterclockwise. Okay, there we go. And like that. Of course, as it gets thicker, it gets harder to roll, which is fine. Fun times. You know, I got to tell you, doing this kind of thing is actually a lot more enjoyable than spending one's time thinking and talking about politics from day in and day out, because there really is more to life than politics. And I have lost a friend. I've lost one friend over politics back in 2008. And it was dumb. It was over something stupid. I didn't catch the warning signs the way I should have, I think. And before I realized it, it had gone beyond the point of no return, unfortunately. So, but even then, it is my personal opinion that politics is never something to lose a friend over. And it happens when one or the other stops believing that the other person is speaking and acting in good faith. The moment that happens, I think we've got to do two more here, at least two more. It says at least 6 or 7 times. So I'm just going to keep going until I'm done, until I feel like I'm done. But we're getting there. So there is far more to life than politics. And if you invest so much of your identity in your political beliefs that you can't be friends with, or you will end a friendship because somebody has a different opinion than you, that is a sign that you are engaging in A, identity politics, which is never a good thing, and B, it is a sign of very deep insecurity on your part. Because if you are so bothered by somebody else having a different opinion than you, why are you, and if you are secure in your belief, why the hell does it bother you when somebody has a different belief? That just doesn't make sense to me. After all, if you truly believe that you are correct in your opinions, then it shouldn't bother you that someone thinks differently. And if you are secure in that belief, then what does it matter what somebody else believes or thinks? If it bothers you that somebody has a different opinion, that suggests to me that you might think that they're right. And now you're trying to hold two different ideas in your head at the same time. And the next thing you know, you've got cognitive dissonance going on, which is a feeling of discomfort that you immediately have to try and resolve in your own mind. And you end up doing that by deciding, well, they're just evil. That person's just evil. Or that's just a bad person. And I can't be friends with a bad person, so I'm going to cut them loose. And that is why it is dumb to get all bent out of shape over politics. Just got a little something there I wanted to get out of the pastry. Don't know what it was. It was probably harmless. There's one principle when I'm cooking, there's one principle I work by. I think it's probably a little bit of coffee ground. If you can see it, it probably can't hurt you. That which you cannot see is more likely to hurt you than that which you can see. Okay, so now we've done this 6 or 7 times. I kind of lost count, actually. When done, wrap the dough in plastic wrap and chill for at least 1 hour or overnight. Dough may be frozen too. Well, I'm going to give it 1 hour. I will not be making the beef Wellington today. I'll probably make it tomorrow. It's Saturday today, and tomorrow's Sunday, so tomorrow is when we're going to have a nice supper, I think. And then we'll take it from there. So I'll chill this overnight, and there you have it. There is puff pastry made in my kitchen by me, by hand, and now you have seen just how simple it is to make puff pastry and talk politics. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve Britton.